Just because you want to be off grid does not mean you don't crave a sense of community. Because we are so centralized, we have allowed 4 companies to control 80% of the meat production in this country.
It's a heart posture thing. A lot of people are scratching their head. Do these things happen all the time? Like, is this intentional?
If you eat better food, you spend less time in the doctor's office. This is not something I'm making up. This is not subject to negotiation or debate.
Even the most well-intended system, if you're dependent on it for whatever reason, if there's a pandemic or if there's a shortage or there's a break in that supply chain, you're screwed.
You can call it divine intervention. You can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you have a connection with that land. If you're not allowed to visit the farm that food came off of, don't eat it.
So Adam, you are Adam Parks. You were raised on a 1,000-acre sheep ranch in Northern California, immersed in agriculture, working the land alongside your family, showing animals in 4-H and FFA. Explain what that is real quick.
Sure. So 4-H and FFA are really incredible youth service organizations. Typically, 4-H runs from 9 to 19. FFA used to be, whenever I was a kid, FFA was always high school age, but it's expanded to there. Kids can get into FFA in junior high now and even younger. They're very similar, but kind of different. Similar but different, for lack of a better term. But it's all agriculture based. It's all in the interest of teaching kids service, responsibility, leadership skills is super important. I got to do judge a competition in Texas a month ago or so, where freshmen were coming in and doing, actually younger than freshmen, junior high kids were doing the FFA creed, and they had to memorize it. There's a walking pattern that they go through. It was really remarkable to see a 12, 13-year-old just nail 5 paragraphs, no misses, eye contact. It's really remarkable, and that's just scratching the surface of what they do.
Very cool. The foundation, so it says that you learned firsthand what it takes to build something from the ground up. That foundation led you to study the agribusiness at Cal Poly,
Yep,
where the roots of entrepreneurship and food systems thinking were firmly planted. No pun intended. After college, you spent nearly 2 decades outside of agriculture before you took a dramatic life turn during the 2008 housing crisis, which we'll hear about in a little bit. And then let's skip ahead a little bit.
Sure.
And you got into butchering. Is that correct?
Yeah, the story of, that housing crisis and then going back to the family farm, and the first thing I had to do was feed everybody, right? We now had 4 generations of people living on the same 5 acres, and so feeding everybody. So I bought 25 meat chickens and a couple feeder hogs and to feed the family. And in doing that, having those processed and everything, kind of thought, hey, I know all these guys that I grew up with that are raising animals. Maybe we could get that meat out to the consumer in a better way. And so I started doing farmers markets, and that was the genesis of Victorian Farmstead.
Gotcha. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on my podcast was there is a growing interest of people, especially in America, that are looking for direct farm to direct table consumption of meats and dairy, et cetera. I think there's more and more people concerned about the big food industry and all the stuff that they're putting in foods, the dependency on the food system. We'll get into a little bit of the spiritual component of this, which is part of why I wanted to personally ask you some questions. But to me, this is a very, very fascinating industry that you're in, probably a very growing one. It seems like the trend is going up, that people are looking for this type of solution. Mm-hmm. And so that was, I want to hear a little bit more about that, but also the investment side of it, which I think is fascinating. So let's start with the beginning, where you grew up, how you got into this space, your time at Cal Poly, and move forward from there. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a very small town in Northern California, about an hour and a half north of San Francisco, a town called Tamales. If you're familiar with Point Reyes National Seashore, is probably the biggest feature of our area. Super beautiful place to grow up. My family had 2 ranches, one at either end of town. The one I lived on was about 1,000 acres. The other one was about 800 acres. People ask me all the time, oh, what an amazing place to grow up. It's so beautiful up there. You must have had a wonderful childhood. I don't know. I didn't grow up anywhere else. So I don't know what it's like to go next door and knock on your friend's door and ask if he wants to play. Our closest neighbor was 3 or 4 miles away. But at a very early age, kids are involved on the family farm and doing chores and all the things that go into that. And then my stepfather, when I was about 14 years old, the farm wasn't doing well. Things were tough back then in the late 70s, early 80s for farmers. And so he took a job with the statewide Farm Bureau Federation. And so he was gone Monday through Friday, and I was left to pretty much run the farm at that age. So yeah, you just did it. You didn't think about it. It wasn't like a burden or anything like that.
Right.
I had a very busy childhood because I played all 3 sports. Very small school. Don't get too excited. I'm not some super athlete, but I graduated with 39 kids in my senior class of high school.
Okay.
To give you context, I was 155 pounds and I started at defensive end and right guard.
You know what? I can actually relate. I went to a very small school as well. Yeah.
So, but I love sports even to this day.
Yeah.
It is one of my big passions. And so I had practice every day. I worked for a local dairy to make some money. And so I would go milk cows at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd go home, get ready for school, do whatever homework I had to do, go to school, leave to come home and do chores, go to practice, come home, go to bed, get up at 2 in the morning, do it all over again.
Wow. 2 in the morning.
Yeah, 2 to 2:30. That was pretty much my regular. And I mean, to this day, I don't sleep all that much. I mean, I if I get 5-6 hours, that's a pretty good night's sleep for me, which is useful because I got more time to do stuff, but frustrates my wife from time to time. Why is he up again?
Man, I wish I had your problem. That's incredible. Okay, so you're running, how big a farm was this?
This was 1,000 acres. So we ran on that particular piece, we ran about 800 bird ewes, mother sheep, and they would lamb all between November and January. And we were a very commercial operation. I mean, we would, my family would get a check every June. The big trucks would come. We'd get all the lambs that were going to slaughter loaded up at once. They'd get a big check, and that would pay out in June, and we'd last until probably March, and then we'd suffer from March until June waiting for the next check.
Wow.
And that was every year.
Okay. Wow. I didn't, the business side of it is very interesting to me, and we'll get into that in a little bit more.
Sure.
So so how long did you do that for?
I graduated high school at 17. I never went to kindergarten. That was when my mom divorced my biological father, and I missed most of preschool and kindergarten, and she kind of snuck me in under the wire. So I was always the youngest kid in my class. Graduated at 17, didn't turn 21 until I was a junior in college. So
Wow.
Yeah, I was always the young one in the class.
The young buck. Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to the sheep, what else did you have on the farm?
Oh, we had all the, we had chickens and pigs and dogs and when I say dogs, working dogs, hunting dogs, and all that stuff was, to feed the family. We'd run cows every now and again, feeder steers. But most of what we did production wise was sheep.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much has the industry changed since then?
That's a wild question. It has changed massively from my standpoint, because everything that I've done since 2009 is dealing with regenerative agriculture, which is a whole nother box of frogs.
Right.
It is wildly different in terms of concept, in terms of timing. That idea of, like one of the challenges I had with Victorian Farmstead was all these buddies of mine from high school and families that raised meat for me, they were used to getting that one check every year, right? You'd load up all your stocker calves and send them off to the feedlots to get fattened up. So they got their big check. And one of my challenges was, look, hold me back this number of steers, this many lambs, whatever, this many hogs, and I will pay you more. You just have to wait to get paid throughout the year instead of getting one check, which was a really crazy concept for them, right? They couldn't wrap their heads around it at first. But that's, when you look at a feedlot, I had a great comment in one of our reels on Instagram where the guy says, "Oh, you guys are full of crap because all cattle spend 75% of their life on grass. It's only that last little bit that's in a feedlot." And he used a percentage, and it made me pause and think. And I thought, you know what? Technically, he's right. Because when your life expectancy is only 9 to 12 months, yes, 75% of your life was on grass before they were weaned. When we raise grass-fed and finished beef, where they're on pasture their entire lives, it takes 18 to 24 months to get them up to market weight. So a vastly different. When you say percentage, yes, he's correct, but he's not telling the whole story.
Right.
And so it's a wildly different thing. Now, all the other big cow-calf guys and even small family farms that are cow-calf operations where they're loading their stockers and sending them off to the feedlots, they still do it the same way we did in 1970, right? They get that one big check or two big checks a year, and they make that work throughout the year. Not well, but they do.
Right. I had a friend that we visited during college one time. He was an older guy at the time, and they had a bunch of livestock, and they had just started to get satellite monitoring and the technology. So I can imagine technologically some of the changes and the management of the inventory, and of course the feed supply and all that.
I mean, it's there. Our director of ranching and I were, his name's Justin Vincent. He and I work very closely together. Even though the ranching stuff is his purview, we have a lot of shared experiences. We grew up the same way. We talk the same language. He's 20 years younger than me, but we were, may as well be brothers at this point. And we've tossed around the idea. They have RFID tags. They have collars that you can put on cattle now where you can track them on your phone and all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of value in technology. Please don't get me wrong. I mean, I live on my iPhone. I live on my MacBook. I don't make no bones about that. But the whole concept of what we're building at Axe Decentralized Real Estate and with Wanted Raw Foods is getting back to making food the way God intended it, is kind of one of our taglines. And the idea is we don't need all these inputs. We don't need to, are we using technology? Absolutely. We want to automate our feeding systems. But in terms of satellite and that stuff, hopefully that comes after I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I hear you.
I don't like it, but it's valuable. The other thing too is everybody's all gaga about Yellowstone, right? The TV show and whatnot, and that they think that's actually ranching, and it's probably as close as you can get on TV, but it's not ranching. The idea of using satellites to figure out where your animals are and stuff like that. Sure. Do people do that? Yeah, but it's the big mega ranches.
Sure. How big is a mega ranch compared to some of the stuff that you're doing?
Oh man, what's the, we'll use Yellowstone, for example. The guy that wrote that show and is now wildly rich and famous, Taylor Sheridan, he bought the 4.6s in Texas. Don't quote me on this because I'm still learning my Texas numbers. I think that ranch is 250 to 300,000 acres.
Wow.
So that's a good size ranch. There's ranches that are bigger. But it's a lot, right? And when, you see guys with planes and helicopters and stuff, it's necessary.
Yeah.
We are doing it much differently. We will ultimately be a 50 to 75,000 acre operation. But that's going to be 1,000 to 2,000 acre ranches in every state. And I'll explain that when we get into the model that we're using, but we will be that large, but it will still be small family farms that are producing that much food.
That's another reason why I wanted to have you on. I think there's something to that smaller size. And like you said, maybe we can get into that in a little bit, but
sure.
So then you went to Cal Poly.
I did.
And you studied agriculture?
Yeah, ag business, concentrated in marketing.
Okay.
That's always been my superpower, is sales and marketing.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether I'm trying to convince my wife of something or, trying to bring in $500,000 investment into our business. It's all the same conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's always been kind of my thing.
And then what did you do out of school?
When I got out of college, I never graduated. I had one English class in my senior project to complete, and then a buddy of ours rolled into town driving a fancy little BMW and a slick suit, and this was in '92, and he was throwing around cash like it was tissue paper, and he ended up getting my best friend and I interviewed with an employee benefits company, so it was like selling wholesale insurance for employee benefits packages. So I left school because that training started before, when I got hired, that training started before the summer semester was over. So I'll go back and do that later.
Yeah.
Never did. So I got into that industry fairly successfully early on. And then I got out of that just by fluke. I was in that industry for, I think, 6 years, and then got into professional golf management and tour operations for the Canadian PGA Tour.
Oh, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it was like owning a AA baseball team.
Okay.
And again, it was great until 2008, but it is wholly dependent on advertising. And in 2008, everybody turtled their money, and then it's back now and they're flourishing. But back then, it kind of went away for a while.
Yeah, everybody took a pretty big hit
Yep.
in 2008. Walk us through what happened there with you?
I use the housing crisis as the reason for our transition, but the reality of it is, that decade of my 30s is like Adam the Lost Years. I was living a country club life as if I was retired. I was doing my job. I ran professional golf tournaments and everything. But I was playing 300 some odd rounds of golf a year. That's all I did. And I'm in the clubhouse and I'm drinking too much and partying too much and not paying attention to my wife and kids. I just wasn't a really good human being pretty much that decade of my 30s. And so it wasn't all about the housing crisis. It was, hey, this house I've got here, this 2,700 square foot home, it's just going to go up in value forever. So I'll just keep refining it and taking the money and we'll worry about the ramifications later. Well, that bill came due in 2008 and we were pretty well screwed. And so we were extremely fortunate that we had my grandfather in 1972 when he retired from the Air Force, bought this little 5.5 acre Christmas tree farm in Northern California and had 3 houses on it. And one of those was made available to me for my wife and 2 young kids. And so we crammed into there and made a go of it.
Bootstrapped it.
Yep.
And then at that point, then you got into what?
So we started the Victorian farmstead and literally started, I had, like I said, I raised up some meat birds. I had some pigs that we raised. I had a local guy that I was friends with that raised beef for us or sold us beef. And he helped us get started. And we went out to the farmers markets. And I always like to be unique in whatever I do. And if I can stand out in some way, I find that is the very basic marketing strategy. And so we determined everybody that was selling meat at a farmer's market was showing up with half dozen coolers filled of indistinguishable white wrap packages that were stamped, and you couldn't tell what was in it. You couldn't tell the marbling or the quality or anything. And so I went about trying to get approved through the local health department and everything to sell fresh meat at the farmer's market. And that was kind of what made us unique and got us going.
Were people coming with not fresh meat? Is this like frozen or what?
Yeah, pretty much any farmers, even to this day, when you go to the farmer's market, it's pretty rare to see anybody selling fresh meat at a farmer's market. And the reason is because it's hard. It's way more labor intensive. You're setting up displays. You've got to have huge coolers of ice to keep it iced down, particularly in the summer months when farmers markets are kind of at their peak. So it's way more labor intensive, and I like to make things very difficult on myself. So that's the way we went. And but it, COVID was kind of our savior in terms of the growth of the business. We were one of the very few businesses that really thrived in COVID. It more than doubled us overnight.
Why do you think that was?
Really easy. People panicked. And panic in my industry is my lifeblood. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about I can make panic out of the $12.1 billion that the president just announced was going to be going to small farmers. I can promise you none of that is going, or very little of that will ever see a small farmer. Every time you hear a recall, this chicken was recalled for salmonella, this beef was called for listeria, any of that stuff, keep that coming, because it brings my prices back into focus. And not my prices, the actual cost of food comes into focus. People are so used to 99-cent, $1.99 ground beef, they can't comprehend $15 or $12 a pound ground beef. Oh, you guys are stealing. You guys must be making millions of dollars because you're charging 10 times what the grocery store does. That's not how that works. That cheap beef is way over subsidized, and that's why it can be $1.99.
Yeah, I mean, it's not $1.99 right now. It doesn't.
No, and like I said, all this stuff just gets that delta to come closer to what we're doing, right? So when ground beef goes to $8.99 a pound because there's a cattle shortage in this country, that helps me out. Now all of a sudden, it's not so hard to go, well, if I buy a 10-pound pack from Wanted Raw Foods and it's $11 or $12 a pound, that's not a very big difference for a quality product versus the crap you can get in your local Mega Mart.
Yeah.
COVID caused massive panic, right? Everybody for those first couple of months had no idea. We didn't know what was going to happen. We had our butcher shop. Were they going to close down the grocery store? We had farmers markets. Were they going to close down the farmers markets? How were we going to get all this meat to our customers? And so my wife, Laura, and I sat down and we were, sweating and tearing up and, oh my God, what's going to happen? And we made a decision. We said, look, let's try home delivery for 2 weeks. We'll offer it free and just see what happens. We'd always wanted to do home delivery, but we could never scale it. We could never get enough orders in one location to justify sending a van to. And so the smartest thing that I ever did in that business was at the very beginning, we collected every single email address we could get our hands on. And keep in mind, this is 2009, right? So social media was not what it is today. Even spreadsheets and websites were rudimentary compared to what they are today. And so we were handwriting emails, and I'm bleary-eyed at 11 o'clock at night trying to figure out my own writing and see what the email was. And but I did this little newsletter that I called Weekly-ish because I never got to it on time. It never went out every week, except around the holidays when I was panic emailing, trying to get people to buy stuff. But my success with that newsletter was simply in that it was super honest. It was stories about our successes and failures. It was stories about my kids. It was stories about what Laura and I were up to. It was very, very personal. And that connected with our customer base. And so when we made that move to go to home delivery, we got run over. Wow. I mean, we had people placing $1,500 orders for meat without, I didn't know them. One of my little superpowers is if you buy something from me, even with Wanted Raw Foods, if you make a purchase, I'll remember your name. And I'm seeing names I'd never heard of that are spending $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 trying to fill a chest freezer because they don't know when it's going to be available again. And that got us really big exposure, and we maintained a very high percentage of those customers for several years after.
And where were you located at this time?
We're in Northern California. So yeah, we would basically, the way I designed our farmers markets was I took a map of the Bay Area and I circled all the most affluent areas. And then I eliminated any that had access to what we did. So like I very rarely did farmers markets in my local area because there's so much meat available in Sonoma County, Marin County, right? Everybody's got a buddy with a half cow or a cow to buy or whatever. So I would go down into San Jose. I would go out to Moraga. These are very affluent areas where they don't have access to that kind of meat. And San Francisco, that sort of thing. And so we went from, before COVID, a good farmer's market for us was $1,500 to $2,000 for a 4-hour farmer's market. And in COVID, we were doing $4,000 and $5,000 markets.
Awesome.
And selling out and being done in 3 hours.
Amazing. Yeah, a lot of people don't normally think of farm country in California, but that's almost all of California. It's a lot of
California. I mean, it's the 4th or 5th, depending on what stats you want to look at, largest economy in the world. It is the salad bowl of our nation. 80% of the produce in this nation is grown in California.
80%? Is it really?
I'll tell you, I have spent the last year traveling through mostly the Southeast. Now I'm expanding into other areas, but mostly the Southeast. My only complaint, I love the Southeast. I've fallen in love with Texas. I like going into Tennessee and Florida, and we've driven through Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and all that. I love it. The culture of the people are great. But the produce sucks.
Interesting.
It is very hard to get really quality fresh produce because that's what I'm used to.
Right.
So it's that's my only challenge is trying to get a decent salad that didn't come out of a bag.
Well, we'll get you a good salad on that.
Excellent.
So let's go through the business structure. So you had the farm at the time, and then when did you start to? Sorry, remind me the name of the other organization. Decentralized.
Axe Decentralized Real Estate.
Axe Decentralized Real Estate. Was that something that you were already doing at that time?
No. So
walk us through how you transitioned from just the
So Victorian Farmstead started to struggle 2023. And it was it's so hard to do business in California. The regulations are insane. The permitting fees are insane. And you can drive yourself batty trying to keep up with it all. Taxes are extremely high in California. It's just a very tough state to do any kind of business in, let alone small business with food, which has more regulation than most businesses. And my wife and I got to the point where we're like, look, we've got to get out. We want to get out of California. And so we were looking at some different ideas. And it was actually my oldest boy's best friend, who's like our 4th kid, that had been bugging me for a couple months. Hey, you got to check out this website. You got to check out this company, Axe, and see what they're all about and see if you don't find something there.
Mhm.
So I played around with the website, and it was a neat website. You could pick a 10-acre parcel in East Texas, and you could say, I want this kind of house and this kind of pool and this kind of sauna and all these different amenities, and it would give you a rough price of what that would cost to build. And then as I was looking into their model, they had this model where all these different parcel owners, there's going to be 40 parcel owners on this 500-acre ranch, and they were going to be raising livestock, communally raising the livestock. And so my first question was, who's processing it? Where's it getting slaughtered? How's it getting cut and wrapped?
Mhm.
And so on a random night, I just sent an email to info@AxeDReal, not knowing who the players were, who the CEO was or anything, and said, hey, I'm interested in one of your parcels, but I don't really want to I'll build a house, but I don't really want to deal with livestock. I'd rather build a production facility and be able to process all the meat that you guys are raising there. And knowing what I know now, a year later, the fact that TJ called me back, my CEO and boss, he called me back in less than 24 hours. That never happens. If you send an email to info, you might be a month.
Right.
But he called me back like the next day and was like, oh my gosh, you're the missing piece. And we had a couple of Zoom meetings. He flew me out to Texas. And as they say, the rest is kind of history from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great marriage right there.
Yep.
And then Wanted Real Foods, when did that start to get plugged in?
Wanted Raw Foods. So yeah, we have Axe Decentralized Real Estate is the parent company of a number of entities. So we have Axe Homes, we have Wanted Raw Foods, which is our food division. We have the Ranchise program, and I can explain that later.
Yep.
We have our development team. We're adding more divisions. Ultimately, we'll get into Axe Resorts, which is our Airbnb version.
Cool.
So we're constantly tinkering with new ideas and seeing what works and riding out the ones that do and moving on from the ones that don't. So I was hired originally as the COO of Wanted Raw Foods, and it was a tough transition. First of all, the first check I got from them in January was the first paycheck I had received with taxes taken out since 96.
Mm-hmm.
I just had never worked for anybody before,
Mm-hmm.
and not since the insurance days. And so TJ and Kara are wonderful to work with. They're the married couple that runs the whole thing. They're the co-CEOs, depending on the day. Kara wears a million different hats. But it really was... The first 3 months were tough because I knew how to sell meat. I knew how to build a meat company. That's what I thought I was hired to do. And TJ had this vision for us to become what he called a lifestyle brand. And there's two big reasons he hired me. One was because I built a company that at its peak was $3 million a year with no advertising whatsoever. The only advertising I did was that little newsletter I referenced. I didn't know anything about Google Ads or Yelp or any of that other stuff. I actually tried to avoid it for some unknown
You're talking
reason.
about the direct farm, that business? Got up to $3
Victorian Farmstead.
Victorian Farm.
So I had built that up without any paid advertising. And the other reason he hired me was because I'd already made all the mistakes. So I knew how to adapt and fix things as you build a meat company. What I had no idea about was social media, which is now the most integral part of our business.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what he meant by a lifestyle brand. And so I was there for about 3 months of coming in and out. I traveled between Texas and California. At that point, I was just going back and forth between Texas and California. I'd be a week in, a week out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wasn't getting it. I didn't understand it, and I couldn't figure out how to get over the hump. And I had we have a company prayer team that's kind of our spiritual guide light for our company. And I know you and I talked when we had kind of the discovery call about my spiritual journey. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But Robin really helped me figure it out. And she's become an integral part of my life in terms of how I make decisions and helping me understand how to work within those parameters. Once I got over that hump, then it was kind of off to the races.
So what was the hump that you got over? What was the lifestyle brand?
I wish I could tell you. I'm not even sure. I think part of it was I was terrified of disappointing my boss. And I have not my biggest character flaws. I got plenty of character flaws, but one of my big ones is I get paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And so I just was kind of frozen in space. And she gave me permission to just go do my job, just go do something. And if it doesn't work, at least it's action. She says, you're very smart. You know what you're doing. So you're not going to do anything ridiculously stupid. You'll do things that don't work,
Right.
or that TJ says, hey, that's not the direction we want to go, but it's action. And it's leading you. You're going to learn from doing that. And that's really what happened is we have a really great media team. Right around that time, TJ hired a young kid who was a videographer, and he's become the crux of our marketing team. And now I got somebody that can show me how to build a reel and can tell me what a hook is and what, how to build a script. And TJ is wildly known for, he will buy a course. If you tell him the toilet paper rolls upside down, he will go buy a course on what's the right way to put a toilet paper roll in the bathroom.
To that, yeah.
There's only one way to do it. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
I will go in a hotel. I will flip it over if it's wrong. I can't handle it. It's my OCD. But we tease him about it all the time. And I'm being fed courses after courses after courses trying to get me, and it was overwhelming. When I set all that stuff aside and just went with what I knew would work in terms of scripts, and had some help building hooks and understanding what captures people's attention when they're scrolling, for that first 3 seconds. That's really what got me over the hump.
Interesting. God, every business needs that basic understanding. If they just knew how powerful social media can be, and get the right people and the right script, it can be a game changer for sure. But what was the lifestyle brand that TJ was wanting you to better understand?
When we first started out, TJ he had a vision for Wanted Raw Foods that it would be like Aloe, the clothing store, like an Apple store, like a Tesla dealership. You go to a Tesla dealership, what do they got? Like 2 cars in there?
Right.
But you're not test driving a million different models or different color schemes or whatever. You go to a little pad, right? And you order your car and it comes in 3 to 6 months later or whatever. Aloe is famous. And by the way, a year ago, if you had told me aloe, I'm assuming you're talking about a plant in the desert.
Right.
I have no idea what aloe is.
Right.
You can tell by the way I'm dressed. I'm not real picky about where my clothes
You're not
come
exactly
from.
the target audience.
No. But what they're really remarkable about is how they do their sales. I mean, they do drops, which is a term I'd never heard before, right? And we still haven't nailed that. We've got so much room for growth.
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing is we understand the concept now. And I'm having such a proud dad 6 months here. My oldest boy, who grew up, he was doing farmers markets by himself when he was 12 years old. He grew up with me doing this stuff, and he started his own little company, and he just got his first foothold about 3 to 4 months ago, and is really taking off right now.
What does he do?
He sells chimichurri. It's called Mama's Chimichurri.
Okay.
It's a recipe that my wife invented. We had a couple years where my wife ran the butcher shop, Laura, and we had bought another ranch and distribution company with a partner. And so she took over the butcher shop, never cut meat in her life. And I taught her, the basics, and we hired her somebody to work with. And she did an amazing job freeing me up to go do this other thing that helped us grow. So she invented this chimichurri. And it kind of took off. Next thing you know, we're, in the kitchen making 5 gallons a week for it. And my son is taking that recipe, and he's got a million different ideas of food. His original concept was to do value-added products for our butcher shop. Yeah, and then the butcher shop's gone. So now he's going to other stores, and he's in, 10, 15 stores in Northern California. It's called Crossroads Co. And
does he sell nationally? Can you buy online?
He does through us.
Okay.
We carry it at Wanted, so you can get it at wantedrawfoods.com. We have all his flavors there. And the gratifying thing for me as a dad is when I got out of college, I wanted to tell my stepfather, here's all the things you're doing wrong. Let me fix them for you, because you don't know, old man, right?
Yeah.
I just got through college, and now I've got all the answers to the problems, right? He has not done that. He has come and asked for my help. He has taken my advice. Not all of it. He still goes his own way, and some of it he takes, and I can't get him to post every day on Instagram to save my life, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But one of the things he did that I think was extremely smart that I tried to convince him of was, he had all these different products, hand pies, meat muffins, all this stuff. I said, look, for the rest of this year, 3 flavors of chimichurri, don't do anything else. get your foothold in the stores, show them that you're going to be a good vendor, show them that you're going to do everything that you said you're going to do, and then they will be happy to put your new products in there.
Yep.
But if you go to them with 100 different products, they're not going to buy it. They're just not going to get it. And he and I had a conversation the other day. He was like, man, I'm glad you told me that because this is great. Right now he's having success.
Awesome.
But even then he has days where, like the other day he came to me and he's like, oh, I'm having such a bad day. And I got told no 5 times today. And I got to have another dad moment with her where I said, look, this is sales. You have to hunt no's. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, you're going to be successful if you're good 20% of the time. You need to go out and actively search for 8 no's, because then you've got 2 yeses coming that are owed to you, that you earned.
Mm-hmm.
And when he changed his brain chemistry on that and understood he was looking for no's, not dodging them like the plague, his whole attitude changed. And all of a sudden he's like, goes into this guy. He's got 16 stores across Northern California. Boom, huge account. So it's been really rewarding from a parent standpoint, because I didn't have that. I didn't have good father figures in my life. I didn't have anybody that was looking out. My grandfather, but he passed away right when we started Victorian Farmstead. So to have that relationship with my oldest kid is really rewarding.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's awesome.
I have that relationship with all my kids, but he's the one that's doing what I do. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Does he do drops?
He doesn't do his social media is not there yet.
Okay.
I mean, he's like I said, he's 3 months in. Right now, he's drinking through a fire hose. Right. He's trying to get into as many stores as he can. He's trying to make sure that he fills orders in a timely fashion, that they don't run out on their shelves, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll get there. And I'm trying not to put any pressure on him. He puts enough pressure on him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, Dad. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so percentage-wise, how big is Wanted Raw Foods compared to the rest of the parent company?
Really difficult to say, because you're talking about apples and donkeys. Axe Decentralized Real Estate is ostensibly a real estate developer. We hate the D word, and I will give you an hour if you want it of why we're not a regular developer. But at the end of the day, we buy big tracts of land, somewhere between 500 and 2,000 acres, and we parcel them off so that people can buy a 5, 10, 20 acre parcel to build a family compound, to homestead, to get off the grid. You'll notice in the name of the company, decentralized, that is a massive word for us.
Yes.
Everything we do is about getting out of this centralized system that is creating nightmares across the country. And so what piece is wanted versus the real estate side of things or the ranch side of things? It's definitely the smallest piece. The reality of it, though, is it's also the lifeblood, because it is the most consistent piece that we have, because we've pretty much doubled our revenue every quarter in the 3 quarters and a half now that we've been in existence. Our first sales were in January of this year. So we haven't even scratched the surface of what that's going to look like. We're producing everything on one ranch in Texas. Next year, we'll be producing out of 3 different ranches. The year after that, we'll probably be producing out of 7 or 8 different ranches. And we're still figuring out our marketing plays and how we do reels and organic content, ad stacks, paid advertising, that sort of thing.
Yeah, fascinating. So what is the business opportunity that you guys are offering with regards to the combination of the real estate and the livestock and the farming, the regenerative farming?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, the primary customers are people that want to get out of this centralized system that we have in this country. And what I mean by that is, I know I'm going to keep referring back to COVID, but if you go back to COVID, what was the running joke for the first year of COVID, right? Everybody was out of toilet paper, right? There was no paper products on the shelves in every grocery store in the country. And I've still got a box of 1-ply Scott's toilet paper that we bought in panic mode, just like everybody else, that's sitting in my pantry way up on a shelf that we'll never use.
Never again.
But that was the mode, right? Everybody was like, freaked out. What that proved is, in this country, we have a massively efficient delivery system, right? You can go to Walmart.com or Target.com or whatever, and you can order something. They will have it at your house within a couple hours. You can pick it up in your own car in an hour. You can go onto Amazon and order anything you want, and it'll be delivered within a couple days. The other side of that coin is that it is incredibly fragile. One grain of sand in those cogs, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And we saw that with paper products in COVID, and then eventually many other things that if just a little problem happens, everything gets really messed up. Our philosophy is, and it goes back really to the founding fathers. We're coming into 2026 where we're going to celebrate our 250th anniversary as a country. Birthday, I guess, better than anniversary. But when you go back and look at 1776, there was two warring parties at that point. There was the authoritarians, which were led by Hamilton, and he wanted everything centralized. This country was going to be built on centralized bank, big government, centralized everything. And if you look at Jefferson, who was an agrarian, he wanted the country built out of small city states, small farmers dominating the economy of this country. And that's what we are trying to get back to. Because when you do it, let me give you this example. And when I do this, I do a franchise master class, we call it, where I teach people what franchising is. What's the biggest taxi company in the world right now?
Uber.
Right. What's the biggest bookstore in the world right now?
Amazon.
What's the biggest hotel chain in the world right now?
Airbnb.
Nailed all three of them. You get an A+. The thing that they have in common is they don't own anything.
Right.
Airbnb doesn't own a single building. Now they've got corporate offices and all that. But I mean, in terms of what they're selling, they don't own any hotels. Yep. They don't have, they contract out with you and me, and we offer up a room, an apartment, an ADU, whatever, our whole house. And that's how they take care of their customers. Uber doesn't own any cars, right? It's all just, you want to make some extra bucks or your full-time job and you drive for Uber. They contract with you. That's decentralization. And that's what we're creating at Axe Decentralized Real Estate, with the franchise program and with Wanted Raw Foods. Every one of these ranches that you and people like you are going to buy parcels to homestead, to get off the grid, to decentralize from this big system that is very capable of breaking down in a moment's notice. They will become delivery nodes. They will become our Amazon warehouse, if you will, to, kind of give an example, where every ranch will distribute and they will take care of their families first. But whatever those families don't consume goes direct to consumer all across the country. The more ranches I have, the less shipping costs I have. That's why we've got Texas, Florida, Tennessee. I need something in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, because I need to cover that sector. Now I can take care of Seattle and Portland and all, Boise, the big cities. If you look at our ranches, they're very strategically located. Our ranch in Texas is pretty equidistant from Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex, Austin, and Houston. Tennessee is equidistant pretty much from Memphis, Nashville, and Birmingham, Alabama. That's all by design.
Really smart. You're able to get the distribution and the scale without sacrificing the locality, quality, and the close to consumer connection, the relationship, which is really cool. Is there anybody else that's doing that? No.
And that's we had this massive win as a company a few months back. TJ was sitting in a meeting, a conference or whatever, with a very, very well-known YouTube social media guy. And the guy was asking a question. He said, who here believes they are the number one performer in their industry? And there was probably 30 people in the room, and 5 or 6 people raised their hand. And he said, why, pointed to somebody else, says, why do you think you're the number one person in your industry? He goes, oh, I sell more mortgages, blah, blah, blah. He said, everybody sells more mortgages. Everybody, go look at the billboards along the highway, right? Everybody's the number one lawyer, gets the number one wins for their accident claims and stuff. He said, no, you don't count it. And to make a long story short, at the end of it, TJ still had his hand up. He said, all right, why are you number one? He said, because I'm the only one doing it. And that one sentence eliminates all the rest of the discussion. If you are the only person doing something, you win every time. We trademarked the word franchise instead of franchise.
Great name.
It's brilliant. And I didn't come up with it, TJ and Kara did, but we trademarked that specifically because of that. Nobody will, now are people going to copy this? Of course.
Right.
But nobody's ever going to exceed what we do because we were the first to do it. We are going to establish what a franchise means and how it evolves over time. So people will try to catch us, but I don't know how you do that unless you have a ranch in every state, and not many people want to take that.
I was just going to say, even with knowing the concept, it's not a very easily duplicatable model.
What you have to have is amazing, passionate people with a common set of values. And everything that we do in this company, it doesn't matter of whether we're having staff meetings, staff parties. We do property tours where we invite people that are interested to come and tour the property and learn who we are and everything. Everything is done in God's honor. It's done with the concept of, again, the way God intended it is our tagline. And we're a very united company in that sense. I am the least religious person in the entire company. And, I'm reading the Bible every day now, trying to learn, trying to figure out what it means, because I still don't have a good idea of what it means. Normally when I used to pray, it was because I'd screwed up, and I was begging for forgiveness and get me out of this mess, God, and I'll be better. I was that guy. Now I understand what that means and the power of it. And, I constantly joke about it. Nobody's dunking my head in a river anytime soon. I'm not sure how far away that is anymore, right? I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I've seen it work. I see how passionate these people are. When you and I had our discovery call, we joked about you and I didn't want to be that guy that said, "Oh, I've been saved and I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior," right? It felt weird. Yeah. It felt icky. Yeah. It doesn't feel as icky now. It still makes me nervous, but we're getting there. I think it's too important to jump into whole cloth until you do some research.
Amen to that. I think we need more people to really have that heart. It's a heart posture thing. And it's not something you can leap into it, of course, with faith, but to really think it through and to really internalize it and embody it and make it in your own, I think is critical. Before we get into the spiritual stuff, I wanted to ask you, though, you talked about the nature of the national level distribution and how fragile that can be. What do you make of all of the livestock, that have been killed, or these chicken farms that go up in flames and, millions of eggs all of a sudden are not being distributed anymore? Yeah. And it's like, that's been happening for the last handful of years, that a lot of people are scratching their head. Do these things happen all the time? Is this some kind of coordinated, psyop? Yeah. We're dealing with a lot of that stuff in multiple different vector attacks, it seems like. So it seems to be a reasonable question to ask. Like, is this intentional? Is this?
I'm not a. It's kind of like the religious thing. I'm not a big conspiracy guy. TJ's got a huge tin hat. I got a little teeny tin hat. Do I think that damage can be done really easy? Yes. I think the damage, though, is not in a big conspiracy or, like we talked about with the elections in 16 and 20, where, Russian bots were creating problems with our elections and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think it's that level, but here's what is the problem, in my estimation, after being in this world for most of my life. We have allowed, because we are so centralized and because the American consumer has been trained to demand 99-cent ground beef, we have allowed 4 companies to control 80% of the meat production in this country. Wow. And 2 of those companies are Smithfield Pork, which is owned wholly by China, and JBS, which is owned wholly by Brazil. These are massive monopolies. They have been controlling the meat packers, and the meat packers fund all the elections. So that's full stop, right? When you look at that 12.1 billion, I will bet anybody the best steak dinner you can find that if you look back in 24 months, when they finally report on, where that money went, if they report on it, you will find that 10 million of that went to those 4 packers and those 4 companies and the meat packers that support them. And 10, 8, 7% of that money actually went to small family farms. And we know it's going to happen because go back to the payroll deal during COVID, where the government issued all this money to help people with their payroll, right? Mm-hmm. And what happened after the fact, 2 years later, all of a sudden it's like, oh, all these massive companies took all that money, and the little guys like me couldn't even get in the door. Or if we did, it was scraps, right? Mm-hmm. Every government bailout that you see, it happens the same way. The massive companies get in, they take the lion's share of the money, and the people it's supposed to actually help never see any of it. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing you mentioned was this has been happening in the last couple of years. No, what's happened in the last couple of years is social media. What's happened in the last couple of years, this country went sideways as soon as cable news came out, in my opinion, because news became a 24-hour news cycle. Now it's a 24-second news cycle. And those people have to create panic in order to draw eyeballs. It's just like clickbait on your social media. It's what I'm trying to accomplish with my hooks when I do a wanted reel.
Sure.
Back when I was a kid, there were 3 channels. I was the remote control.
Yeah, same.
Right?
Yeah.
I had to get up and go change the channel for my grandfather.
Exactly the same.
And, there was Walter Cronkite and a few others, and that was it.
Yep.
You went out and collected the paper, and I couldn't see the box scores on my teams until I went and got the green sheet out of the Chronicle and sat down and read what happened last night in the ball game.
Yep.
That's long gone. And this stuff has been happening for generations. Like I said, since the advent of cable news, it probably happened long before then. I only have my lifetime and some history lessons to look at. But I remember in 88, I think it was 88. No, it wasn't 88. It was 84, I think. We had this national cow kill program for the dairy industry. We had too much milk in this country. We had too much government cheese. If you remember when that was a thing.
Yeah.
And so the government paid all these small dairies to kill off their herds. They paid them a big check. It was the one time that government money actually, because that was a tangible thing, right? It wasn't that you had to apply. I've got this many cows. You're going to pay me this much money. I'll kill them once you give me my check. It was a very effective program, lowered the herd value in the country and everything. And all those guys went out and bought beef cows, and their dairy barns became museums and storage sheds.
Interesting.
I wasn't old enough at that point to know whether it was a good program or a bad program. I just know that it happened. But when you look at the government programs these days, like this $12.1 billion we've been talking about, I have no confidence that's going to do anything other than support the people that are the last that we need to support.
Sadly.
Yeah.
I wish I was as optimistic as you are that there isn't nefarious intentions behind some of that stuff. Maybe TJ and I would.
Oh, I'm not. It's not that I'm optimistic. I'm ignorant.
Well, that might be part of it. But you mentioned your tagline, "The way God intended it," which is awesome. I love that. What do you feed your animals, and what makes the quality of your stuff better than the traditional packing?
So we are a pasture-based rotational grazing. There's a very, very smart man out of Virginia. His name is Joel Salatin. Most people have heard of him at this point. He's kind of the godfather of the poster child for rotational grazing, pasture-raised meat, and so on. He kind of wrote the book on it. I think it's been improved on by a lot of people. I think that our director of ranching, Justin Vincent, is one of those people. He and I have a ton of fun with this stuff because TJ and Kara, our CEOs, have given us the authority to try whatever. And so what makes our stuff different is, first of all, transparency. Whenever I do a reel, you will find me talking a lot about if you're looking for a way to determine what you eat, I have a very simple rule that anybody can follow. If you're not allowed to visit the farm that food came off of, don't eat it.
It's good.
You don't have to actually come to Texas. I'm not expecting people in the Carolinas to fly to Texas to see how I'm raising our beef or our pigs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're buying from a farm, like if you go to your local farmer's market and you talk to Billy Bob that's down there slinging steaks and you say, "Hey man, I really want to come see your operation. Can I come check out your farm?" And he tells you no, don't buy it. Because if he's not willing to let you see how the sausage is made, to use a metaphor, then, I've got concerns.
Raises questions.
We not only welcome people to come to the ranch. Now, it's got to be organized. It's not that we're hiding anything, but we're busy.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of work to do. We're a growth startup company. And so we can't just have people popping in. There's also some minor biosecurity stuff that goes into it as well. But at the end of the day, all you have to do is ask the question. And if you tell me I can come see your carrot farm, I don't really need to know anything else, right? You're probably not going to say that unless you really are okay with me coming to your farm. Now I'm going to try your carrots. I think that in terms of what we feed right now with our beef, we're in that transition period. As I mentioned earlier, beef takes a long time. If you start off with one female calf, right? Let's say you just weaned this female calf at 6 months old. It's a solid 4 months before she produces a mature, market-ready steer that's ready to go to the locker. Because we don't breed cattle till they're 2 years old, 18 to 24 months. And then she's got a 9-month gestation. And then that calf, once she has a calf, that calf takes 18 to 24 months to get up to market weight. So this does not happen overnight. You can't buy a grass-fed and finished operation because there's not enough people and not enough volume in that space. Grass-fed and finished beef makes up about 3% of the beef consumed in this country. And
Is that
growing.
it?
That's it.
Yeah, a lot of room for growth. I think more and more people are coming to that.
So what we're doing, just so that we're clear, and again, full transparency, because of Justin's an 8th generation, him and his wife, Stephanie, Justin's 8th generation rancher in Texas, East Texas. So he's got contacts from decades. And so he found a local guy that he knows and trusts that's raising beef. They're grain finished. The guy is graining them on quality grains, known source, non-GMO. That's how those beef are being finished, because otherwise it doesn't do me any good to start this company without beef, right? You can be a pork and a chicken guy, I guess, but you're not going to do enough volume to move the needle. You have to have hamburger, you have to have ribeyes,
Makes sense,
etc. And so that is a compromise that we're willing to make because we trust our partner in that to raise beef the right way as best we can. 10 years from now, I will still offer grass-fed and grain-finished beef because it is a unique product. And there are ways to do it that are healthy, as long as you're not feeding them corn and soy, as long as you are doing it when the animals are still out on pasture, you're not feedlotting them. But by the same token, Justin and I came up with a concept that we're testing out. It'll start in a couple months. We took 50 acres on the Texas ranch, and he studied agronomy at Texas A&M, and we planted this 50 acres with a very specific blend of grasses. And the idea was, what if we were to create a feedlot system, use the feedlot model, but make it grass? So these animals aren't out standing in their own manure and muck and whatnot. They're not crowded. There's no need for antibiotics, prophylactic or otherwise, none of the stuff that we hate about CAFO operations. But what if we finished our cattle on pasture that was very specifically designed to do the same thing that a feedlot does, meaning I want to put more fat on them in the last 120 days. I want to build that muscle mass, that ribeye. I want to build that up, because that's when the cattle do the majority of their growing. And so we're testing this theory. We planted 50 acres. We've got a couple dozen steers that we're going to run down there for the last 3 months of their lives before they get harvested and see what the results are.
Very cool.
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Right.
Maybe somebody's doing that, but it's certainly not public. And one of the things that Justin and I really want is we want to revolutionize how grass-fed and grass-finished beef is perceived and distributed and raised. It doesn't have to be just, this guy that's got 4 steers a year down there.
The armchair version of my understanding of what's going on in the beef industry and other livestock, you hear, that they pump them full of hormones, that they don't have, that they're in those tight cages. It's just mass produced. Soy and corn to plump them all up, et cetera. So, do you guys do vaccinations? Do you do hormones? And if so, do you do mRNA stuff? Because I know people are concerned about that technology as well.
So the short answer is no, none of that stuff. No antibiotics, no hormones, we vaccinate our animals. Let's be clear about that. We vaccinate our calves. First of all, particularly in Texas, you have to. Texas is what's known as a brucellosis-free state. Brucellosis, if it gets into your herd, you have to kill off the entire herd. And you can't use it for meat. You just lose those animals there's no discussion about it. Once you test positive for brucellosis, because if it got into the national cattle population, we'd be out of beef instantly. Wow. It's that big a disease. We're facing a similar thing, not to the detriment of brucellosis, but there's all this talk of the screwworm coming up from Mexico that the beef industry is keeping a very close eye on. These things happen all the time, right? In our world, it's just another cloud coming over. So our calves get vaccinated. But that vaccine, first of all, no mRNA. Let's be clear about that. Okay. None of that stuff. These are vaccines that we've used for generations. They're very safe vaccines, and because they're getting that vaccine when they're, 8, 12 weeks old. That vaccine is so far out of their system by the time they're harvested. You could test our meat anytime you want. You'd never find residue in there.
Interesting.
Now, if an animal's sick, I am not going to let an animal, Justin's not going to let an animal suffer because they're sick. We have modern medicine and we have antibiotics that can heal that animal very quickly. It will not go into our food system though. We will take that animal down to the sale barn and sell it to somebody that doesn't care about whether that animal had antibiotics. There's plenty of people that are happy to eat that meat. We're not going to let the animal go to waste. We're not going to let that animal suffer, but it will not come into the wanted raw food system. That's our commitment to our customers. We don't feed our animals corn or soy. There's no flax. That flax has been the new buzzword that everybody's freaking out about. I have no idea why, but it seems like every 5 years there's something new for us to be terrified of. I remember 15, 20 years ago, the sulfites in red wine were going to kill all of us, right? And that ended up being a big nothing burger. Right. So we don't get too worked up. In fact, we just mostly get annoyed by being asked the same question over and over again. Not that you're asking it, but we get this from other people. So this is as clean a meat as you could possibly hope for. We did our first batch of turkeys this year. We only bought 200 poults, baby turkeys, because I didn't know how they would do in the heat of the Texas summer. Texas is no joke in the summertime, right? It's 90 and 90 degrees, 90% humidity. And this was a relatively mild summer, but still nothing like I'd ever experienced coming from California. And but the turkeys thrived. The weight distribution from my standpoint as a butcher and a meat guy was remarkable. They were beautiful. They ate. We obviously had one for Thanksgiving and it was amazing. No corn, no soy, no confinement. They're out on tractors on the pasture every day moving. Awesome. And again, it goes back to the way God intended it, right? Nobody said that you had to, use farrowing pens for your hogs. Nobody said you had to use battery cages. Nowhere in the Bible does it talk about confined for animals except for the ark. Right. I say that like I've read the whole Bible, but I get the gist of it. Right. That's really our whole thing is uber transparency and doing it the right way, making good business decisions that are in that vein of the way God intended it.
I love that. The other component to this that people may not be aware of, I just started buying from my local farmer, the quality, the taste, like you take a bite of it and it, for me personally, being a Gen Xer, it took me right back to when I was a kid. I was like, oh yeah, it's supposed to taste like this. Yeah. And not only that, but your body feels way better. You can feel, when I eat the beef, like you feel stronger, you feel more clear-headed, you feel like your immune system's more robust. It's an incredibly profound health impact when you consume better quality stuff. That alone should be enough, I think, to get people to be maybe more interested in farm direct type food. But there is this other component, of course, that a lot of people, I think, are interested in, which is the off-grid, decentralized, let me unplug from the big box, grocery stores, et cetera. I want my own quality food. So walk us through, who is your ideal customer for the franchise opportunity? And let's start to talk some numbers financially. Like, what does that look like? What are they getting? Walk us through that opportunity.
Is it okay if I go back to something you just said? Because I think I will absolutely address that because it's one of my favorite subjects. But on our streaming services that my family has right now, I pay the extra $3-5 a month or whatever to not have commercials. But I'm also a sports fanatic, so I have to watch commercials from time to time on the live show, on the live sporting events. What is it? 3 out of 5 commercials are drug commercials. Yep. And we, it's been an election topic for for years now and whatnot. People need to get this through their head. Food is medicine. If you eat better food, you spend less time in the doctor's office. This is not something I'm making up. This is not subject to negotiation or debate. It is simply the way it is. It is factual. When you raise an animal, and it shouldn't be challenging to explain to people, right? If you raise your kid outside in the dirt, playing with his friends in the fresh air and sunshine, he's going to have a better autoimmune system. He's going to be healthier. He's going to have better muscle tone. If you let your kid sit on the couch eating sugar corn pops and playing video games all day, you're going to have a fat, slovenly kid. This should not shock anybody. When you eat pasture-raised meat, because those animals are out on pasture in the fresh air and sunshine, getting exercise, moving about, a couple things happen. One is the meat is more nutritionally dense. You just talked about all the things that you noticed in your body when you ate that better quality meat. That's not because of some weird random, because of a mind trick. It's because When your omega-3 and your omega-6 fatty acids are in balance, it's easier to digest. You feel fuller on a smaller portion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've really noticed is, as much as I traveled this year, 250,000 plus miles in the air this year, my diet sucks. And I've spent the last 15 years eating nothing really but my own food that I was responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've eaten way more fast food than I should. Even when I go out to restaurants, I mean, dang, I love the South, but boy, they will deep fry a shoe and call it dinner. It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my body.
Yeah.
I don't have the energy that I should have. And when I get to sit down and have a proper meal with one of our steaks, or get home and my wife makes me a meal with some of our food, it is a noticeable difference.
Yep.
That thing is real. And the more people understand that they're not going to have to spend so much money on medicine and doctor's appointments and feeling like crap, never mind the money, you just feel like crap.
Yep.
That should be enough to say, hey, maybe I need to spend that extra $10 a pound on a ribeye, and there's ways to do it that don't cost that much. You don't have to eat ribeye every night. And we can get into that another time if you want, but I do want to answer your question about
Well, you're going to pay for it one way or another.
Yes.
So might as
We're
well.
way cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It tastes better. Your body feels better.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the numbers on the
Sure.
on the financial opportunity.
So I talked earlier about, we buy these ranches, we parcel them out into large tracts, 5, 10, 20 acres, depending on the ranch and the size and all that kind of stuff. One of the unique things we have is this franchise program. And it's actually available. You don't have to own land with us. It's a different price point if you don't own land with us. But what it does is it gives these people it's a passive income business.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first started the franchise program, when I first rebuilt it, right after I got hired, there were some really inherent problems with it. And then about 6 months went by and I went back to the leadership team and I said, hey, there's still some big problems with it. And I think I've solved them. And I presented this plan, and it really did. And one of the advantages of that was it allowed us to sell it fractionally. So when you look at a franchise, what you're talking about is, think of it like owning a stock. Like if you tell me you own stock in Apple, the next logical question is, how many shares do you own?
Mm-hmm.
And when you own a franchise, you own a number of shares of that. It can be as low as 0.25 share. You can order a quarter share of a franchise. We've got a woman that owns 16 franchises. So you can get into it in however big a way you want. The idea behind it is, and the question that used to drive us nuts before it was revamped in June was, what's the ROI? Okay. If you go into a meeting with me talking about franchises and you're looking for a quick return investment, you're looking to wonder what my ROI is going to be, what are you committing to, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not even, I've hung up on people, not hung up on it, but I've excused them after 5 minutes going, look, man, this just isn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to work for you.
It's not
You're not
just
gonna be
a
happy.
money play.
No,
Right.
no. So when I talk about the ROI here's how I can prove it's not a money play. The first step in determining the ROI for it that I tell everybody is, okay, well, let's use you for example. How many kids you got? 4? 2 kids.
Yep.
And how old are the kids?
As of literally today, 20 and almost 18.
Okay. So you got 4 adults in your
Happy
house.
birthday, Savannah.
So when you look at ROI, you've got 4 adults in your household. I'm going to bet that if you went back over the last 3 months and added up your grocery receipts just for meat and eggs, that you guys are, and I'm going to make it very conservative. Let's say that you're spending $500 a month on meat and eggs. That's probably really low for you guys, but let's say that's what it was. Your first ROI by being involved with the franchise program is $6,000 a year. So if you were to buy a quarter franchise at $50,000, right? And let's say that I suck at my job as running the franchise program, right? Because the franchise program gets its revenue. The profit share comes from the success of Wanted Raw Foods. It is not dependent on what your franchise produces at all. My first goal with you owning a franchise is that you now have total food security. You never have to worry about where the food's coming for your family ever again. It's generational. It's a one-time payment. And the second piece to that is to return some money from the success of Wanted Raw Foods. As Wanted Raw Foods grows, these franchise families are the crowdfunding that we use to grow Wanted Raw Foods. So you have your franchise, it produces X amount of meat a year. Your family uses X at 50%. that other 50% gets sold through Wanted Raw Foods. You get a share of that revenue. That's a very simplistic way to describe it. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about ROI, if I was to return on a quarter share $400 next quarter for the profit share, you're like, what am I doing with $400?
Right.
I won't even notice that.
Right.
When you annualize that and say, okay, let's say I suck at my job and you're getting $1,200 a year. Well, take $1,200, add it to the $6,000 that you're saving in the grocery store, and take 72 into that $50,000 investment that you made for the first year. That's a real ROI. You're, if my math is right, what would that be? That would be half of 72 is, it's about 14%.
Yeah.
I think it's like 14% if I'm not mistaken. But so if I can, let's say it's not even that, let's say it's 10%. If you're getting a 10% ROI after the first year, and that assumes no growth. I've never had a quarter where we didn't grow, but that assumes zero growth. That's just annualized. But if you could get 10% ROI on your money and have food security and have that comfort, you're not going to the doctor as often. You don't have to go to the grocery store as often. My goal at the end of the day is to keep people going to the grocery store for toilet paper or toothpaste. That's it. Everything else should come out of the ground or on the ground. So when we look at the ROI, I don't like talking about it, but I'm very proud of what we do in terms of the ROI because I think it's a fair return. And I think when you add in that ethereal comfort that you get from food security, you've got to put some value on that. And if you don't, then this isn't for you. I don't want you, I don't want to waste your time if you can't wrap your head around that comfort, it's probably not a good fit.
Right. So is 50 grand, is that the initial offering? Is that
that's for a quarter share if you don't own land. Now, truth be told, we have little triggers in there. We have sales. This is a marketing company. And so, I'll do different things when I hold these franchise classes about once a month. We have them on demand now. So you can go to Axe Decentralized Real Estate or actually just go to ranchise.com. And it's exactly like franchise, just without the F. You can go to ranchise.com and you can watch my dog and pony show on there. It's on demand. The link is very easy to find. You watch that, you fill out a brief "Who are you?" questionnaire. My amazing success coordinator, Haley Robinson, will talk to you and see where you're at. Are you ready to do this? Do you have the financial wherewithal? I don't want anybody stretching to do this. I don't want you selling off everything you own to buy a franchise. It has to be comfortable because I don't want anybody to come back 2, 3, 5 years later to go, oh my God, it was everything I had. And not that I don't think the program's going to be wildly successful, right, but I need it to be comfortable for people. This is not a Ponzi scheme. This is not a snake oil deal. This means a lot to me personally. I never thought in a million years that I would work for any kind of a developer. Because both Justin and I have talked extensively about how our whole life's work has been to keep ag land in agriculture. This is a way that we can not only keep ag land in agriculture, but dramatically improve the productivity of that land.
You mentioned that you have a client that has 16 franchises. Did I understand that correctly? So there is, I'm assuming, some level of profitable ROI that somebody might want to.
She's pretty happy with us, yeah.
Yeah, to continue to scale. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, she did it as an early adopter thing to help us get started. We use, when somebody buys a franchise, it's not just about buying the livestock that they buy. It builds infrastructure. When we buy these ranches, like we're about to close escrow on a ranch in Middle Tennessee, it's got some sheds on it, but and a bunch of houses, there's like a dozen houses. It was a hunting compound for the last 30 years. So there's no ranching infrastructure there. There's no working pens. There's no cross fencing. So we need to go in and put a lot of effort into building barns and corrals and brood houses and stables and all the things that go into a ranching operation, all the equipment. That's not inexpensive. I need $1.5 million to $2 million to build out a proper ranch. Now, the one cool thing about it is, from my perspective, being 56 years old, every ranch I've ever worked in my lifetime has been a hand-me-down. And I never had little brothers, but my little brothers used to bitch about getting my old clothes with the stains and the tears and stuff like that as their hand-me-downs. All the ranches are the same, right? I'm taking somebody else's problems on. Justin and I are giddy over being able to go in and build a ranch so that we can become somebody else's problem 100 years down the road when they're yelling at us for what we screwed up or did wrong. It's going to be really interesting to be building our own barns and our own brood houses and our own working pens.
Yeah. So a quarter franchise, about how many? Franchise. Sorry, thank you.
If I correct you, it enforces it in this thing.
Yeah, no, please do. Feeds about how many people a year?
Let me put it this way. A quarter franchise will easily feed a family of 4, 6. It really doesn't matter. And there will be plenty left over for Wanted Raw Foods. It's a very difficult question to answer because I have no idea what your family eats. Are you eating only chicken? I've got families that are like, yeah, I need 25 pounds of ground beef every month. And so what we've done to bridge that problem is, as a franchise owner, you get a 25% discount off of anything we offer at Wanted Raw Foods. And what that means is that, because as I was giving you the example earlier of how long it takes for a 6-month-old heifer calf to produce a steer that's ready to harvest, that 4-year period, you buy a franchise, you're not getting meat the next day. Now, you can get meat to purchase through Wanted Raw Foods at a steep discount, but your franchise, first of all, I need 6 to 12 months to populate your animals, because I can't just go buy the quality of animals that we expect on our ranches. We're very specific about the breed mixes. We're breed crosses. We don't run the same cattle crosses in Florida that we do in Texas that we will in Montana, because of the heat and the topography and the humidity and all those factors. We're very intentional about what we did. In fact, we just bought 2 new bulls out of a bull sale in Alabama last month, and it's a brand new idea for us. There's this gentleman out of Colorado. His name is Kit Farrow. He has spent the last several decades studying the genetics of beef and which breeds convert grass into fat and grass into marbling and grass into muscle mass. Wow. And it's fascinating. I mean, this is where I even Justin geek out, right? You guys would be bored to tears over this stuff, but we can't. We're up in the midnight looking at this stuff. Anyway, we were so compelled with it. What his discovery? There was this breed that literally I had never heard of up until 6 months ago, called South Poles. And I'm sure there's cowboys out there that are laughing at me right now. Oh, we've heard about South Poles. Well, good for you. I didn't. So I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, we are bringing their genetics in to our herds because they're a very squatty, fleshy cow. They have an amazing conversion rate. And the hope is, my goal long-term, this will never happen, but it's progress, not perfection. My goal long-term is, it doesn't matter if you get a ribeye out of the ranch in Texas, the ranch in Montana, the ranch in upstate New York. I don't care where you get a Wanted Raw Foods ribeye. I want it to be indistinguishable from any other Wanted Raw Foods ribeye. And the only way we can do that is through playing with the genetics. And when I say genetics, we're not GMO, we're not genetically modifying anything. Right. We're just using heritage breeds in different combinations to try to get some consistency in our ribeye scores and our marbling scores and that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
So that we have a consistent product. I don't want to get in a situation where, oh, I really like what you're doing out of Texas, I want that. That's a nightmare for me from a distribution standpoint.
Sure. So somebody who is interested in this opportunity, if they were to then move forward with it, am I understanding correctly that you're then taking that money to establish a new ranch?
No, that ranch, the franchise money is very specifically for that division is called the RHL, Ranch Hand League. When TJ and Kara dreamed this up long before I got here, his concept was to run every ranch like a sports team. And so that's why it's called the Ranch Hand League. And he wanted the Texas Longhorns to be competing with the California Earthquakes, competing with the Florida Gators or whatever. And you could order from your favorite ranch to support that ranch, and there would be a scoreboard and standings and all that kind of stuff. Really cool concept. I killed it almost immediately when I got there because I said, look, I get what you're trying to do and I love it because I'm a sports fanatic. But from a distribution standpoint, that creates a lot of problems from me. Because if somebody in New York wants to support the Texas Longhorns, I've got to pay shipping from Texas to New York. If I've got a ranch in upstate New York or Pennsylvania or wherever, I need to ship that from the closest possible node. to keep our packaging and shipping costs and all that down. And that's the genius of TJ and Kara, is once they learned that I knew what I was talking about, that Justin knows what he's talking about, that Johanna, who just came on with as the director of home sales, when they trust somebody, they don't ask questions. They want you to go do your job. And, we're constantly surprising them with things that we do. And they're like, when did that happen? I didn't even know that happened. And it's a really nice way to work for somebody, to have that, for them to have the confidence and trust in us. But when they do, to not to be rude, but to stay out of the way and let us do it. It's incredibly gratifying. I don't know that I could ever work for somebody that didn't do it that way.
I was just going to say, what an incredible work environment.
It's wild.
That's what most people
it's amazing.
Dream to work in. And it's, I've been in both, and it's
incredibly high pressure, especially as my role has evolved over the last 3 months, where I'm now involved in kind of most of the aspects of the business at a 30,000 foot level. Super stressful. I am having to learn things that 2 weeks ago, I had no idea if you had said horizontal construction versus vertical construction, I would have had no idea what you're talking about. And now I got it. Okay, where are we putting the road beds and where's the septic go? This is stuff that never entered my mind 3 months ago, and I'm having a ball doing it. But it is challenging.
Okay. So just to be clear, for people who are interested, if they were to buy part of the franchise, then they're able to get food on a monthly, weekly, whatever basis.
Yeah. So your franchise produces as it produces, right? And what I mean by that is you buy a franchise, I've got 6 to 12 months, depending on if you own land with us or not, to populate your animals. Once your animals are populated, then it depends on when those animals are ready for processing. So for instance, if you buy a franchise with me January 1, and you have 50 meat chickens in your franchise, right? We're going to break that into cohorts so that you get chicken over the years as opposed to all at once. So let's say we've got 10 of your chickens that are in the next batch that goes out to pasture. It's going to take 10 weeks for those to go from day-old chick to my freezer. And that'll freak some people out. Let me give you some context for that. The big boys, the Tysons, the Foster Farms, and all those are taking day-old chicks and putting them in the freezer within 6 to 7 weeks. So from a percentage basis, we take a lot longer. But at the end of the day, those are going to go into the freezer at 10 weeks. So you own a franchise, if you don't own land with us and we populate your chicken, your animals 8 months down the road, you're looking at 11 months before you see the first chicken. Now, what we do to bridge that gap is, again, you have a 25% discount. And if you're a smart shopper, we offer a lot of programs within Wanted Raw Foods. We have a subscription service where you pay a flat rate. So for your family of 4 adults, you could do a large custom box every month. It would cost you $199 is the retail value of it. So you're going to pay $150 because you're a franchise owner. You get 25% off. And for $150, you're going to get enough meat to feed your family for the month. And if you want to buy extra stuff, you want a bunch of jerky and snack sticks and all the value-added products that we do, you still get 25% off all that. So you got to adjust your ROI, right? If you were saving $500 a month, but now you're spending $150, take that into account, right? You're really saving $350. That's fine. Do it properly so that you know what the value of it is. We want people to understand the value of this. We're not hiding anything.
So to be clear, when people buy in, there's going to be a lag time before they start to see product.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is a passive income business. It comes with risk. Any business, you don't go buy stock and hey, where's my dividend? You guys existed, so you have to pay me a dividend. You get told all the time when you're purchasing stocks that, there was no dividend this year. It was a rough year. We've never had that happen, but we've only been doing it for 3 quarters. This will be the end of our 4th quarter at the end of this month. I don't foresee it happening. But is it possible? Of course. Could you have an animal die? Absolutely. We haven't had that happen yet. Because
so your investment is tied directly to specific animals.
So we have what we call the Franchise Command Center, and your animals will be very clearly tagged for you. You don't own a share of our cattle operation. You own these 3 steers, this mama cow, this mama pig. Now chickens are different. Chickens in the franchise world, we call them evergreen because chickens are processed out relatively quickly and we don't have a breeding program for them like we do with the the four-legged animals. We just have built in the price of those chickens to be replaced every time they get
Makes
used
sense.
up. So chickens operate very differently, but you will literally get to go to a website and you will see a face picture of your mama cow.
That's awesome.
And it'll have one ear tag that belongs to the ranch that Justin and I know what it means. And the other tag in its other ear is going to say the King family, and franchise number 127 or whatever the number is. And you can come out to Texas and I will put you in a buggy and I will take you out and I will find your mama cow and show you where she is.
Oh, that's cool.
But you can see a picture of her. Ultimately, that website is going to allow you to watch the grazing patterns on the ranches. So you can watch your animal, not in real time, but move throughout the property as they graze the different paddocks. And that's where you'll get notifications. Hey, Peter, we just harvested steer 172. How much of that meat do you want us to send to you, or do you want to come pick it up at the ranch?
Gotcha.
I think it's pretty well thought out. We don't have anybody that has processed meat off their specific franchise yet, because again, this has only been going for a year. But we're getting there. We're getting very close to that. We do have a bunch of people that are using their franchise discount and feeding their family through Wanted Raw Foods.
Once the animals get processed, do you then, is there another charge to bring in more to refill that or whatever? So
No. The way we designed this was that it will grow organically on its own. And what I mean by that is, even at a quarter franchise, you're not going to have a dairy cow. And quite honestly, you don't need one right now because we're building our first dairy parlor in Texas for raw milk in the first quarter, hopefully. But let's use beef. You've got a mama beef cow, and she's going to be bred and produce offspring. You own all the offspring. So I went and took, before I presented this to our leadership and finance team, I went and took what I considered a 1.0 share of a franchise, and I extrapolated over 10 years using average luck. And that 10-year period, it basically doubled. Now it's going to ebb and flow because you've got animals that are processed and animals that are born, et cetera. But over the grand scheme of things, over 10 years, it basically goes from 1.0 to 2.1 or 2.2, depending on luck. There's a lot of luck involved in ranching. You could have a mama cow that has a male male calf every year. Well, you can't grow your franchise on males because they don't have babies. They become meat. We rig the system a little bit in that sense where, like for our dairy program, we AI our dairy cows, and that means artificial insemination, not artificial intelligence. I've got to be very careful for people that aren't ranchers. But we AI them with what we call sex sperm, meaning that we have a 90 to 95% chance that calf's going to be female. Male calves have zero value in a dairy operation. They go straight to the auction house. Because I don't feed anything that doesn't produce. And male dairy cows really don't produce anything of value. So they go off to somebody else to deal with. But that concept of, rigging the system a little bit, that's where technology nudges Mother Nature and God along a little bit.
So then for those that are interested in the land component of this, walk me through a little bit of what you're offering with that.
So the website, the parent website is ACTSDEREAL, which stands for Axe Decentralized Real. Axe comes from the Bible verse. D is for decentralized, DE, and real for real estate. If you go to that website, on the upper right corner, there's a drop-down hamburger menu, and it'll say visit our properties or look at our properties or whatever. And that will show you the 3 ranches that we currently operate. The Tennessee one, we're still waiting to close escrow on. But you can go and see the parcels that are available, what size they are, how much they cost, what the cost per acre is, all that kind of stuff. We do property tours every month. For the last 3 or 4 months, I've been running them pretty much myself, not myself, but with my team. TJ used to run them, but they just, speaking of December birthdays, young Stetson was born on December 1st. We are all super excited.
He made the deadline.
He made the deadline. He'll be able to go to school with the right age group, unlike me. It was amazing. Kara had him at home. 6 hours of labor. I'm not going to say that it was easy. This kid was 10 pounds, 13 ounces.
Ooh, that's good.
And 6 hours of labor. That woman is a miracle in and of herself.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He's a big, healthy, robust little boy. And that's their 4th kid. They have 2 daughters, and Leela Riley, and then their 3rd is Colt. Colt, and now they got Stetson.
Great
So
farm names.
yes, we take this all very seriously, and they travel like nobody's business, right? They go to all the kids, they are homeschooled. The kids go with them everywhere.
That's cool.
Property tours. It's really an amazing deal. But as Kara got closer to having the baby, they stayed home, and so somebody had to go do the tour. And I said, let me give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of been doing those the last couple of months, and it's been awesome. I love doing them. You get to meet so many interesting people, have these kind of conversations. Probably not in this detail, but where we sit down and we have a meal afterwards, and really get to know each other. And so yeah, you can go to the website, you can see everything. And we have people all the time that'll put in parcel reservations sight unseen. I really encourage anybody that's doing this, come out and meet us, come to the ranch. I know it costs money to travel, it takes time and stuff, but man, you will get so much more out of it.
I bet.
And the big thing that I always see when I do these property tours is, I remember whenever I was taking my kids to visit colleges. My kids are all, well, I got one left in college, but my two oldest are out of college now. And I remember my daughter, her final two choices for college were USC or Chapman. And Chapman was this little private college in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and did the tour of USC, and she was really excited about it and everything. And she really liked it, but it was big and a little scary and whatnot. And then we went to Chapman, and 30 seconds after she stepped foot on that campus, I knew it was over. I knew the decision had been made. She didn't know it was over. I knew it was over.
Mm-hmm.
We went through the process, and she went and mulled it over for 2 or 3 weeks and kept, over analyzing the stuff. I already knew where she was going to go. It was the same for my oldest boy when my wife took him up to, he was actually recruited to play football at a D3 level. But when he stepped foot on Oregon State's campus, done deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think the same thing happens when you get out in the dirt and you can walk that property. You get a feeling, you get a comfort, and you can call it divine intervention. You can call it Mother Nature. You can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you have a connection with that land. And that is what we are desperately trying to create. Because if you have a connection with the land, that is going to create an instant respect for that land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way that we're going to be successful, is that if everybody involved in all of our communities has a deep and profound respect for the land, that allows us to ranch it the way it's supposed to be ranched.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I see those connections happen, I get very fulfilled.
What's the benefit of getting the land? I would presume that a lot of people are coming to you for the food security aspect. What are they getting with the land that you wouldn't get just with the franchise?
I think the big thing is security. And when I say that, again, I'm not a huge conspiracy theory guy, right? I often joke with the people that are buying our stuff. They're not preppers. Nobody's stockpiling AK-47s and canned goods.
Yeah.
It ain't that far away,
yeah.
right? So when I build, and I say anytime I say I, I'm talking about my team. Let's be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do much of it. I'm pulling levers from 30,000 feet
right.
most of the time. I've got wonderful people that work for us that make this stuff happen. And TJ and Kara would tell you the same thing about me, right? They do the 50,000 thing, and then I pull the levers to the next level.
Right.
But what these people are looking for is first to get off the grid, right? Let's get some separation. Let's get some space. Let's get our kids out in the dirt. Let's raise them out in the country. Let's not worry about what the traffic is. If there's traffic, it's because the tractor's in the way. And so that's kind of step one. But at the end of the day, when I look at these ranches from a ranching perspective, and because I have to look at it not just from the ranchise, not just from Wanted Raw Food, I have to look at it from all these perspectives. Mm-hmm. And what I've always committed to was, in the near future, every one of these ranches is going to be able to be turtled, is what I call it, right? If, pardon my French, if the shit hits the fan and that centralized system collapses, the banks collapse, or delivery systems are no longer there, whatever, the next pandemic, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But if that collapses, every one of our ranches will be 100% self-sufficient. We do not rely on the grid for power. We do not rely on the grid for well. We do not rely on every one of these people are dying to build their own food for us, for vegetables and fruits. We've got a wonderful family down in Florida, Patricia and Q Marley. They've had their land for, 6 months. And he is out there every single time I'm there, no dwelling, no house. He couldn't care less about that. But he's got banana trees, and he's Jamaican. He's got banana trees and papaya trees and dragon fruit and just this amazing food garden. He's a horrible fence builder, by the way. And I know he's going to listen to this because he built this janky fence to keep the cows out. And I tease him about it all the time. But his gardening is remarkable, right? And they are going to produce far more food than they're ever going to eat. And then you're talking about the community that gets built. And, we've got people that ask all the time, well, do I have to be Christian or do I have to go to church with you guys? No, you don't. What you have to do is have common values. Let's start with don't be a jerk. Just let's make that the baseline. Don't be a jerk. Yep. I use other language elsewhere, but I respect your podcast. But if you start with that baseline, is our company built on biblical principles? Absolutely. I mean, our deed restrictions are built on biblical principles. Really quick, funny story about the deed restrictions. Can I do this?
Please.
This is the most amazing case of self-awareness that I have ever experienced in my life. In our deed restrictions, there is a very specific deed restriction that I never thought anybody would ever bring up that says that, you can't be adulterous. You can't have an affair with a married person. We had a lady request her deposit back because she very specifically said, I don't agree with that. I can't do that. So I'm going to gracefully step out and want my deposit back. Huh. That is the most amazing self-awareness I can ever think of. Like, I know that I'm going to cross that line. I'm just not going to go down that road. I'm going to do you a favor and step away now.
That's the most ironic. Like, I'm going to be honest here, but I'm going to be dishonest over here.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to screw this up, but I want to be honest with you.
Yeah, I want to be honest. I'm going to be a jerk. It was, I love that story so much. But anyway, it's the community that will be built. And we get questions all the time because I do tours in Florida, I do tours in Texas, I do tours in Tennessee, and they're all very different. They're very different ranches. And people say, well, is it all going to be the same? Can I go ranch to ranch? I said, no, it's not. I promise you it's not going to be the same. And the reason is because there's different people in each community. Those people are going to determine what that community looks like, how it interacts with each other, how they have social events. Is it possible that we could have a community that never has social events? Sure. If you had a bunch of introverts for some reason in a small ranch, I guess you could have that. Yeah. But from what we've seen, most of these people crave community. Just because you want to be off grid does not mean you don't crave a sense of community. One of the most depressing things you can do on social media is go into whatever your favorite social app, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, and look up homesteading. These people are miserable by and large. And the reason is it's not because they're miserable people, but they have become slaves to their own freedom. They don't have the ability to take a day off. They have bought these animals. They're raising these kids. They're raising these vegetables, and they don't have support to take a day off, to have a vacation, to be a community. They're isolated. They are working 24/7, 365 days a year. They have no backup plan, and they generally have a side hustle, a side job, or whatever. It's 1% of homesteaders that are like, oh, this is great, or they're in their first 3 months. But go back to them a year later, and you're like, oh, I'm going to milk the cow. Yeah, the one cow that feeds their family. One of the things you get with our deal is, as a developer, again, hate the word, but we are very unique. When you look at a DR Horton, for example, right? They're going to come in, they're going to put in an ocean of rooftops. They're going to sell all those, and then you'll never hear from them again. They're on down the road. They've drug up and gone down the road to sell the next development. Yep. I own a piece of Tennessee. I own a piece of that ranch. My wife and I have a 6.5 acre parcel. When we close escrow on it, it's got a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house on it. That is our safety net. That's our bug out spot. If everything went to hell in a handbasket, we'd have a place to go that we own outright. I don't ever have to think about it. We'll eventually build a nice home up on the hill and all that kind of stuff. But I got something that is my comfort spot. That community there is going to thrive because people come together. One of the really unique things that we have as a company is it's called the Mighty Network, and you'll find it on that hamburger menu in the upper right corner. It is our own private social media channel. and people interact on there. I see all the time people helping people that are considering it and talking them through the pros and cons and what their experience was and what we've done that worked and what we've done that doesn't work. We've made tons of mistakes. We will make tons more. I think our leadership team is now at a point where we're very adept at fixing those relatively quickly. But we are always going to pivot. We are going to make decisions based on what is best today, with some forethought into the future, but really never looking looking backwards, because we know those mistakes. We've learned those lessons. We don't have to repeat them.
You've mentioned, as we start to wind down here, the owners of the entire business, are they Christian? Did you say?
They are the most Christian people I know.
Okay.
And they, one of the things that always fascinated me before I really started digging into spirituality versus religion, and that's how I would describe them. They're incredibly spiritual people. Everything they do is guided by spiritual principles from the Bible. Very Christian. Our whole company is very Christian based. We've got people that are not Christian that are part of the leadership team, that are, Jewish or whatever. It doesn't matter, but it's all rooted in the same basic belief system. And I think that, that was a really hard thing for me to understand early on. Was there is I have a lot of problems with organized religion. I have no problem with spirituality. And when I was able to understand and make that distinction, that also is what got me over that 3-month hump that we talked about a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to, they don't go to church every Sunday. Sunday's a day off. Nobody goes, very few, some people go to church, some people don't. It's whatever you like. But at the end of the day, we all adhere to the same spiritual principles. It doesn't matter who you talk about, what you call your higher power, your God or whatever. At the end of the day, it's those spiritual principles that really guide us in how we do business.
Yeah. I think it's an important, I know there's going to be people that want to know the answer to that.
Sure.
As a Christian, it's meaningful to me to know that they are, especially when I read more of the Bible.
Yeah.
And I start to connect dots with current events.
Yeah,
and
sure.
what's happening in the Bible. So I think you guys are on the leading edge of what's going to be a very popular trend very, very, very soon. Not that it isn't already. I mean, there's already people that are homesteading and seeing, the coming storm of the dependency. To me, it's all about dependency and a recognition that even the most well-intended system, if you're dependent on it for whatever reason, if there's a pandemic or if there's a shortage or there's a break in that supply chain, you're screwed. You don't have any toilet paper. So it's like, this is regardless of whether or not you buy into end of the world stuff or not, there's something about this that I think is still incredibly interesting for a lot of people.
Hope so. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of value in that. I think that, and it ultimately, it's God's plan. We're just implementing what we're taught and where the way we direct our company and build our company. But ultimately, it is the people in those communities that are going to determine the success of this. Because it's not that we're going anywhere, but one of the biggest differences between us and just going and DIYing your own homestead is we offer support. We offer community. And I don't mean community is one thing, right? Y'all are going to get together and you're going to decide. There's no HOA. There's none of that crap. This is just, how do you want to live your lives? I mean, Joe Schmo down the road there is going to put in a gun range on his parcel. Awesome. Is he going to share that with other people? Or is he going to be like, nope, I'm fencing off my whole thing. Nobody comes in. This is mine. Probably not, because that's just not the nature of the people that we seem to attract.
Yep.
But from a ranching standpoint, we run everything. My team, Justin's team, runs that operation, and we have the world's best ranch hands doing this stuff. We pay exceptionally well to have the very best people husbanding these animals through their life, respecting their lives. Our corral systems, if any of your listeners out there have ever heard of Temple Grandin, she's this amazing woman who has spent her entire life studying and building the proper systems for the humane slaughter of animals. That's her thing. And she has very specific plans. I've built them in another segment of my life, where, for instance, the cattle, when they come into the slaughter facility, all the corners are rounded. There's not a right corner. Cows don't like right corners. You'll never see the sheep by itself, because if you go to the county fair and you hear a sheep going nuts, it's generally because it's by itself.
Interesting.
Very simple principles, but if you build with that intention, all of our corrals are going to have bleachers, so that when we're branding, when we're tagging, when we're marking our calves or whatever, people can come and watch and learn and be educated. And cool. You know, our dairy parlors are going to have windows up in a like they have on the TV shows with the surgical suites, where you can watch what's happening with microphones, so that people can learn and see how their milk is produced and why we do it a certain way. That sense of community, that sense of care, that is the attention to detail we put into everything.
I love that. Adam, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. We talked about maybe me coming out and seeing one of the properties.
Can't wait. Yeah,
I'd love to take a look at that. I'll bring the camera and share it with my audience as well.
Sure.
I know people are going to have more questions. Where would you like to point them to follow up with you?
So, as I mentioned, the parent company is ACTSDREAL, ACTSDEREAL. .com. If you want to check out the Ranchise program, that is simply ranchise.com, RANCHIESE.
Yeah.
Franchise, take off the F and you'll be fine. And it's like banana. I didn't know where to stop. And then the food company is Wanted, like Wanted Dead or Alive, raw, RAW, foods.com. And you will find our support people all over there. I highly encourage anybody that's interested in this to go to the ACTSDREAL website, get on the Mighty Network. The Mighty Network is full of information. It's got a ton of our videos. We do a lot of coursework. We call them master classes that you can find out there that'll give you a really deep knowledge of where to start. And then we're here to support you. You can't help but find us on there on any of those sites.
That support is critical. It's so nice to have this opportunity, I think, for people who are interested in homesteading and food security, to have a team of people who've been doing this for generations that you can start to slowly learn from without it taking over your life, without you having to be a slave to your own homestead, still have some flexibility, some freedom, et cetera. It's an awesome thing that you guys are doing. And again, thanks for the transparency. I appreciate you being willing to be rough on the edges where you know, it's a growing idea. It's an innovative concept.
Nobody's ever called me polished, ever.
Well, I really appreciate it, Adam. So thanks again, man.
No, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. You asked really, really meaningful questions.
Thank you.
So this was a great opportunity for me and for our team. And I know that everybody back home, TJ and Karen included, will be very grateful to you. So thanks.
Fantastic.
All right, pal.
Let's go get some Italian food.
I like it.